Welcome back to my channel. She was just the cook, the one who made sure every plate was full and every soldier had a taste of home in a place where home was nothing more than a memory. Her hands smelled of spices and soap, her face always half lit by the glow of the kitchen's dim lights, and her voice, rarely heard, carried a quiet warmth that even the toughest Navy SEALs found comforting. No one paid much attention to her beyond gratitude for her meals. She wasn't there to fight, wasn't trained to handle a rifle, and never asked to be part of the mission. She was simply part of the background, as invisible as the wind that blew dust across the camp. But all of that changed the night one shot echoed across the base, a shot that would be remembered by the SEALs forever. Clara had arrived at the outpost months before, filling the role of cook after her husband, a soldier himself, was killed in combat. She never spoke about it, but grief has a way of reshaping a person. Beneath her calm smile was a steel no one could see. Her kitchen became a refuge, not just for her, but for everyone around her. The men would joke, complain, sometimes sit in silence while she worked. She didn't say much, but she listened. She could tell who had lost someone, who was scared before a mission, and who pretended to be brave. She was like the pulse of the place, steady, unnoticed but vital. The base was small, surrounded by barren landscape, and though danger always lingered somewhere beyond the perimeter, life settled into routine. The SEALs went out on missions, came back exhausted and bruised, and Clara fed them like they were her own. In that rhythm, everyone felt a strange kind of peace, until the night when the horizon erupted with fire. It started with a dull thud, then another, distant explosions rolling closer. Within seconds, the alarms wailed through the compound, and soldiers scrambled into formation. Clara was in the middle of preparing the next day's rations when the first blast knocked a pot from the stove. The lights flickered, dust rained from the ceiling, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. Someone yelled for her to get down, to hide, but instincts kept her moving. She could hear the crack of rifles, the low shouts of command, the unmistakable chaos of an attack. In the corner of the kitchen, she saw something move, something that didn't belong. Through the haze of smoke and dust, a shadow slipped past the doorway leading toward the storage room. For a moment, her mind refused to process it. Then she saw the glint of a weapon, the unfamiliar insignia on the sleeve. Her heart slammed against her ribs. There was no one else in the kitchen. No time to call for help. Her eyes darted around, landing on a rifle propped against the wall, left behind by one of the soldiers who had rushed out moments ago. Her hands shook as she picked it up. It felt alien and heavy, but her husband had once taught her how to shoot, how to breathe, how to hold steady. "It's not about strength," he had said. "It's about stillness." She remembered that now as she crouched behind the counter, watching the intruder move closer to the fuel supply. He was planting something, wires, maybe explosives. Every second stretched into an eternity. She swallowed the panic rising in her throat, pressed her cheek against the rifle, and exhaled. One pull of the trigger, one sound that shattered the air. The man dropped instantly. The silence that followed was deafening. Her ears rang. Her pulse roared in her head, and the rifle felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. When the SEALs stormed back in minutes later, they found her sitting there on the floor, the rifle still in her lap, her face streaked with soot and tears. The body of the intruder lay a few feet away, his vest filled with explosives. Her single shot had prevented the detonation that would have wiped out the entire base. No one spoke at first. They didn't know what to say. These men had seen battle, loss, and chaos, but what stood before them now was something different. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't trained for this. And yet, when the moment came, she acted with the calm precision of someone who refused to let fear dictate her choices. The team leader finally stepped forward, knelt beside her, and gently took the rifle from her trembling hands. He didn't offer words of praise or comfort, just a nod, the kind of gesture that passes between people who have both seen the thin line between life and death. The next morning, she was back in the kitchen. The soldiers watched her in silence as she prepared breakfast, her hands steady again, her movements unbroken. No one mentioned the night before. They didn't need to. Every plate she served that day carried something unspoken, a new kind of respect. She had earned her place among them not through rank or medals, but through the quiet courage that comes only when instinct overcomes fear. In the weeks that followed, the SEALs began to treat her differently. They cleaned up after themselves, thanked her more often, sometimes lingered longer at the counter just to talk. She didn't change her routine, didn't seek recognition. When the commanding officer offered to nominate her for a Civilian Medal of Valor, she declined. "I was just doing what anyone would do," she said softly, though everyone knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would have done what she did. As the rotation ended and the team prepared to leave the base, they presented her with a small flag, signed by every member. Along with it was a single bullet casing, the one from the shot she fired. It wasn't official, it wasn't ceremonial, but to them it meant more than any award. She tucked it into her pocket without a word, smiled faintly, and told them to write when they got home. They promised they would, but deep down, they all knew some bonds don't need letters to survive. Years later, when her story finally surfaced in the SEAL community, it became a legend, a whispered reminder of what courage looks like when it's not wearing armor. They spoke of her in the same breath as heroes, though she never saw herself that way. Her name wasn't in any official report, but it lived in the stories passed between men who had seen what bravery truly meant. Her moment, the single pull of a trigger that saved countless lives, became a symbol. It wasn't about violence or even war. It was about the power of instinct, the way a human heart can react when everything it cares about is on the line. It was about the strength that hides in the most ordinary people, waiting to rise when the world calls for it. Clara's story is a reminder that not all heroes are built in battlefields. Some are built in kitchens, behind stoves and cutting boards, where their strength takes quieter forms, until one day the world asks for more. And when it did, she answered. The SEALs never forgot her because she embodied something they all believed in: readiness, courage, and loyalty. She didn't fight for glory. She fought for them, for the place they called home, for the memory of the man she once loved. And though she went back to her kitchen and never fired another shot, that one moment became her legacy, a sound that would echo in their memories forever. The story of the cook who saved a team of SEALs isn't just about survival. It's about design under pressure, performance in the purest sense, the kind that can't be trained, only revealed. Her movements, her focus, her courage, all came together like the inner workings of something perfectly built, something forged by love, loss, and purpose. The soldiers saw it too, a quiet strength that didn't need orders or recognition. It simply existed, waiting for its moment. Even years later, when those men looked back on their time in the desert, they didn't talk much about the missions, or the firefights, or even the medals. They talked about her, about the woman who served them breakfast, reminded them of home, and when it mattered most, became the reason they lived to tell their stories. Her name, her shot, her quiet defiance, all of it lived on like a pulse that never stopped beating.